All right. So today is the Friday, and we're going to go for some questions. When I noted the rising and falling of the abdomen, I noted rising, 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 end of rising, falling, falling, end of falling. Both endings, I could not note the breaks. Later, the phenomenon became more fine and subtle. Then I applied more effort, and I tried to note ardently. I could continue to note it quite clearly. At this juncture, the sitting, touching pressure and the buttocks were clearer. Question, do I switch or continue noting rising and falling when they become finer? All right. So, you notice the rising and falling. Okay. All right. One of the problem that your rising and falling become finer is maybe it's because of your noting itself and the way you note the way you note an object. Yeah. You see, when you're noting rising, falling, that means you are just like taking not to say cannot, but it all depends on time. It depends on certain condition. Sometimes when your energy is already clear, your energy is already stabilized, and object is already clear, then you put in more energy into it now. When you put in more energy into it, and then you try to become more sharper in the rising and falling. Maybe because of at times the mind is impatient. The mind is impatient. Once it's become impatient, it try to note rising, falling, got ready then rising some more, and then see whether got some more things or not. Yeah. Then he wants to push the mind. He wants to push the mind. He wants to push the mind to note it even more finer in that sense. But your mind is not ready for it. Your mind is not ready for it. And then when you over push it, some people goes into concentration, some people go into more energy. So when you go into slightly more concentration, that means your rising and falling is going to go finer and finer and finer. Yeah. So it's going to go finer. So what is important here, when you note your rising and falling, if it's a single rising, you note it one time will do. If it's a come in like a step 2 or 3 or 4 steps of rising and falling, then you note a few steps of rising and falling, rising, or falling. If the object shows you, if the object doesn't show you, for example, if you only have a rising only, then only you inside there you like rising, then it's like one object you try to shoot it with so many times. Then that is where, for some people, the concentration will start to develop. And when it starts to develop, that is where things become your rising, falling becomes not clear. And then if you switch over to your buttock, because the buttock or the sitting, touching, they are clear, therefore your whole mind become balanced again. Things become clear to you. That's why you said it's clearer. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful on sometimes in this one. At times you can do it, at times you cannot. Because at times the rising, falling is just a one up and one down. So that time you just put one rising and observe what is going on. But if it shows you like 3 or 4 rising at that time, then you put 3 or 4 rising. It's perfectly all right. But if you just one rising only, but you want to put 3 or 4 labeling inside there, that can be a problem. That is where you start to disturb your faculties already. Because we are not talking about one rising, we're talking about so many rising, so many fallings that is going to happen in the near future. So just have to be careful. So things become finer because of sometimes it can be too many notings itself. Okay, so be patient. Be patient. Let the object, let the phenomena open up to you. Let it comes to you. Let it slowly open up to you. Sometimes you may, in a certain sittings, you may notice this a few rising and falling. No, a few rising, a few falling. But another sitting later, you only notice one rising only. But then you remember back, hey, that sitting, I can notice that rising. I want to go and see that rising again. So in this sitting, can I just do rising, so that I can see what I've seen in the past sitting, So because of that, the mind becomes all haywire also. All these things yogi has done, So you just be careful.